it's Desiree, and I'm so excited to be spending this time with you because I'm going to do just a full face. I'm gonna do my makeup from start to finish today, starting with number 50 Serum Primer. I love using this as my primer because if you're wearing skincare, you can use this to lock it in and then put your makeup on over top. But I especially love it around the eyes. If you're someone who's like super prone to creasing or cracking, especially in the eye area, a primer is definitely going to be a great addition to your already, I'm sure, amazing makeup routine. The first thing I always start with are my brows. And I know that probably seems crazy, but for somebody like me, I really don't have a lot of brow hair. So it's hard for me to kind of, do my eye makeup without my eyebrows done because they are what frame your face. They frame your eyes. So for me, I'm not ever going to start my eye makeup without my brows done. One thing that you'll notice too is that this one is, like if I comb both of these up, this one's always higher, always. So when I'm doing my brows, I actually comb this one down so that I can try to make them even when I'm drawing them in. So I'm just using Brow Power, which is a universal eyebrow pencil. It's great because it adheres to skin. It looks like real hair. It'll cover any little grays if you have those. But the nice thing is that it's a universal pencil. So, a universal shade, also in an automatic pencil format. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I know I should be doing my brows, but I've never been able to find the right color, or you have a brow a brow product that you like, but the color's just like a little bit off, and you're like, I don't really know, how to find my right shade. Well, this will take all the guesswork out of it. But if you have a brow pencil that you love or a brow product that you love, that's like half the battle, so you're all set. The next thing I do is I use Bye Bye Under Eye Illumination to sculpt and kind of polish the look of the brow hairs that I just drew on. So I use a concealer brush, and I'll use this to kind of just clean them up. If you make any mistakes, this is a great way. Like, I think of it as like a magic eraser for any mistakes that you make with your makeup. I even use it when I am doing my eye makeup, as far as like shadow and eyeliner and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see as we go along, I'm using it to kind of create an arch where there isn't one. And also what's nice too, which is pretty awesome, is that if you are behind on your waxing appointments for your eyebrows, or you're someone who didn't have time to tweeze, or you just really didn't feel like doing it, this is a good way to kind of hide those stray brow hairs because it's technically a concealer. So what it'll do is it'll just kind of cover it all, so that if you do have those stray brow hairs, you can't even tell because now they're covered. So that's something I was just doing right before I came on. I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these crazy stray brow hairs. Like, even though I don't have a lot of brow hairs, I will get brow hairs that grow in the most random places. Like, I'll get brow hairs that grow in like here and here. And I'm like, I don't even need brow hair there. But anyway, the hardest part for me, probably for anyone who is brow challenged like I am, is getting them to kind of look even. That's always the hardest part. So if that's something that you struggle with, I try to remind myself, our brows are meant to be sisters, not twins. So if you're struggling with trying to make them look perfectly symmetrical, you're probably going to drive yourself crazy, number one. But number two, it's just, it's so unnecessary. Our brows aren't going to look perfect every time. They're not going to match every time. So anyway, one tip that I have for brows is that if you find you're starting to spend a little too much time on one or both of them, kind of walk away from it. So like right now, I could already tell I was starting to spend too much time on that one brow, and I was kind of starting to obsess with it almost. So it's time to walk away. We can always go back and play with it again later. But what I want to start to do now that we have a really good base for our eyebrows is I want to start on my shadows, my eyeliners, and stuff like that. And you're gonna notice, like, as we're going throughout this, like, I won't be able to, like, I'll just go back and I'll be like, I can get it. I know I can get it. I know I can get it. See, I feel like that was what I wanted. And then right over here, adding a little bit of an arch there. Okay. I mean, they're a little straight today, but that's okay. We can always deal with it again later. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the Naturally Pretty palette. This is my favorite palette of all time. I actually just cleaned all my makeup brushes with Brush Love, so I'm excited to use them. So I'm just using a dual-ended eyeshadow brush, and I'm gonna start right here on the inner corner. I'm using the lightest shade in the palette called Sheer Joy. I'm gonna use it right under the brow bone to kind of give some highlight, but I'm also kind of pulling it down and putting it all over the eyelid. I'll do another one over here. And I don't even know why I put my finger here to kind of hold this area, because it's not really even doing anything. I think it's just kind of like a comfort, like I just put my finger there to kind of steady myself. But I really like this color. Now, all the shades in this palette are matte. So, but the awesome thing is that if you want a pearl, or like some of you call them a shimmer shade, but we don't actually use shimmer in our shadows, you could use this transforming ribbon, and it will, and if you mix it with any one of those shades, it'll instantly make that shade that you're mixing it with go from a matte to a pearlescent shade, which is awesome, super, super innovative. I've never heard of a single palette before in my life that you could do that you have that much versatility with. So I think that's pretty awesome. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this dense kind of crease brush, and I'm gonna go in with the shade Java, which is like a, it's almost like a matte chocolate shade. What I try to do here, because I'm starting to notice some hooding on my lids, is I'll line this up with the outer corner of my nose, and I'll put that there. I'll do the same thing to the other side so you can see. I mean, keep it, definitely you want to keep it under the brow bone, of course. But this is a good place to kind of figure out for me where I want the deepest shade of shadow to go. And I'll just kind of blend it out. I know it kind of looks a little messy right now, but you know, I'm not a professional makeup artist. This is kind of just my everyday routine. And if you blend enough, it will all start to come together. I'm gonna actually add a little bit more down here. Okay, and a little bit more over here. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a clean crease brush, and I'm gonna use that to blend out the harsh line that's towards the top there. So it shouldn't look so stark now. Now, I'm gonna keep blending with another shade. So I'm gonna take the shade Soulful, which is this really pretty like matte pink shade, and I'm gonna use that to blend everything together. I just feel like that's such a pretty brightening shade. And I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Now, if you're trying this at home and it's starting to get a little out of hand, go back with that same concealer brush that has the illuminating concealer on it and bring down the brow area a little bit more. I go into the inner corner of the eye and I start to blend it all together. And again, this kind of goes back to the whole idea of that this concealer brush is literally like our magic eraser brush. So if you have this brush with you, and this has always worked for me, it's like it takes the fear out, because no matter what you do, or like if you're doing something and you think you did it wrong, I'm going back with that light bone shade in the crease again, or I'm sorry, the brow bone again. No matter what you do, you now know that you can always erase. So you can't really so it's always gonna look great no matter what. And then I'm gonna go back in with a little bit more of that pink shade to kind of bring that brightness to the lid. All right. I feel like that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add that shade Sheer Joy right back to the center to brighten the inner corners of the eye. And what I wanna do here is I wanna add that Transforming Ribbon, Transforming Pearl shade. And that's gonna give some more of like a radiant finish. So now that brightness is even more intensified. I put a little bit under the brow bone. Okay, great. So the next thing I wanna do is eyeliner. I'm gonna use my No Tug eyeliner in the shade Black Brown. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this in the phone so I can see it better. But I'm following the natural shape of my eye, my lash line. See that? I'm gonna do the same thing to the other eye. Following the natural shape of the lash line. This will help you to keep a natural looking shape to the eye as you're doing your eyeliner. Because I know sometimes if you think you have to just kind of freehand it and go wherever, it'll get overwhelming. Then I'm gonna go back and use an eyeshadow smudger brush. And I think this time I'm gonna use the shade, Iconic, which is it's like a deep plum. And I'm gonna use this along the lash line for a little bit more definition. I'm not gonna take it all the way in because when you leave this area here alone, it tends to make the whole eye area look brighter and a little bit more wide set, which is really flattering when you wear your makeup like that. So we've kind of blurred out that line that we created with the eyeliner, which is fine because I was only using that as like a guide. So now I'm gonna go in with Superhero. This is a waterproof gel eyeliner. It's a liquid gel, super easy to use. And then this is going to be, hold on, you'll probably be able to see it on the other eye better. There we go. I don't know if I can talk and do this one at the same time. I think that looks good. Okay, so now I'm just gonna fill in where that line should have met my lash line. And if you feel like you've made any mistakes, I'm not someone that likes to keep this like a harsh line. So I'm gonna show you how I actually will soften the look of that line. So if you're someone who likes the way this line looks, keep it like that. Just for me, it's not something that I normally will do. So I don't know why, but right now I'm going back in to just see how everything's starting to come together. Like if you try to like nail every single thing, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So I like to, now I'm gonna add a little bit of the black on the lower lash line. I do wear contacts, I do have sensitive eyes, and this always seems to work pretty well for me. And then now that the Superhero gel liner has probably dried, I'm gonna take that smudger brush again and use that shade Iconic to kind of buff out the harshness of that line so that it looks a little softer. Just because I like a softer looking eyeliner. But if that's not what you like, then leave it the way it is. And then just gonna go ahead and blend in the crease again. Now that we're adding more things, I just wanna make sure everything is blended together. Probably need a little bit more of that pink shade too. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that like that for a little while because I was starting to get a little crazy about it. And then from here, I'm gonna put Tightline on. I always use this to prime my lashes. It's nice because that super tiny little brush allows you to get right to the roots. So when you're doing that, if there is a little bit of a gap between the lash line and your eyeliner, this is a great way to do that. It's also a primer, so it's prepping your lashes. The nice thing about this as being your primer is that it's a black one, and if you're wearing black mascara, it's gonna make sure that your that your black mascara stays super, super black. Versus, I know sometimes I've used white lash primers in the past, and then it's funny because like I'll go to put my mascara over top, and it almost kind of looks a little bit gray because you're putting black over top of the white primer. So for this, I love it because it's black, so everything's already looking super intense. And when you have a super, super black mascara, it makes the whites of your eyes look even whiter and brighter. And that can oftentimes equate to youth and health. So I'm all about that. I'm using Superhero Elastic Stretch Volumizing Mascara right over top of the tight line. Neither one of these are waterproof. I prefer this formula. It just, you know, even though it's not waterproof, it still seems to last really, really well. And it actually comes off really easy at the end of the day. So many times I've worn waterproof mascaras in the past, and the formulas will dry out my eyes, or, you know, and then they take forever to try to get them off at the end of the night. So from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put down just a tiny, tiny base of CC cream. So I'm gonna use this mainly as my all over foundation, but for just right now, I'm just gonna put like the tiniest bit all over my skin, just as like a base, because I'm someone who feels like I usually have a lot of problem areas on my skin. The under eyes being one, breakouts usually another. As we get more into the summertime, I'm gonna have a lot more hyperpigmentation to cover. So what I do is I put a very, very thin application of this on. And what it does is it gives your skin an extra boost of hydration and skincare. It's also giving your skin that SPF 50. And because I'm only using a little bit, it's just giving you the littlest about a very small amount of coverage, because I don't need coverage everywhere. Like this area here and here, I don't need a ton of coverage. This area here, I don't need a ton of coverage. So I'm putting this all over in a tiny amount so that I'm not wasting product, but also so I'm not layering and piling a ton of it on to my skin either. Now I'm gonna go in with, I'm going to use Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer. Now this is the tan shade. I'm going in with a darker shade than I normally wear. I'm gonna put this in the areas where I have breakouts. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the area where I'm broken out is so deep, dark red that if I use a lighter shade of concealer than my foundation, it's not gonna be deep enough to cut through that color. So watch when you use a deeper shade and how it just instantly covers, because now it's not competing with the tone of the redness. If you have Bye Bye redness, I would even use that instead, because then because they're, you know, you're kind of tackling the same type of issue with that. And then right here as well. I know a lot of people who have like rosacea swear by Bye Bye redness, but also so do I when I have breakouts. I have a little bit of a hyperpigmentation spot right there. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit this guy up here too. I have that blue vein, but I feel like the CC cream kind of cut right through it, so I'm okay with that. And now from here, I feel like we're covered pretty well. From here, I am gonna go in with my Bye Bye Under Eye Concealing Pot. This is the Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer, but there's no weight to this now. And the reason why I like using this one under the eye area is because the under eye area, oh geez, I just got that kind of all over. The reason why I feel like so many of us struggle with concealers under the eye is mostly just because we're putting too much on. So let me just take a little bit of this. I'll use this side to get started. Now the flat side of this brush is great for getting right up under the lash line. Oh, back to the whole idea of this brush being your little eraser. So see where we had like all, like I was kind of messy with my eyeshadow? This is a great way to kind of clean up that whole area. It looks brighter. It's a lighter shade than we used to cover the blemishes. So it's nice to give a brightening effect to the eye area. And it's just a nice way for you to feel like you just did a really good job there. Now, after that, I would go in with that same brush, that same eyeshadow brush, and just use that to kind of smooth any areas that are kind of starting to look a little too, like almost too polished, if that's even possible. And then over here on this side as well. Just doing the same thing. Taking it down over the dark circles and then using the fluffy side of this brush to blend it all together. See? And the nice thing is that now you don't have a ton of makeup all over your face, like lots and lots of layers. You've only concentrated on putting the extra coverage where you need it. So for me, it was the under eyes and this area here around my mouth. Okay. So now I can kind of see how like everything is kind of starting to come together right now. And this is a good time to kind of inspect your brows and just kind of make sure that everything is kind of looking the way you want it to look. And I feel pretty good about this right now. The only area where I'm having some second thoughts are the eye area. I feel like it needs a little more brightness. So I just used that concealer brush and now I'm just blending it together. This is literally what I do until it feels right. And some days it feels right a lot sooner than other days. It's just, it just depends. So from here, I'm going to set this. And some of you are probably using a designated setting powder that's clear. Some of you are potentially using a setting powder that's tinted with your foundation shade. Because I'm having so many issues here, I am actually going to set my makeup with Celebration Foundation. So this is actually a full coverage powder foundation that I'm going to use to set my CC cream and my Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer. I'm using a fluffy brush because what we want to do here is we want to kind of stamp it onto the skin, because if you start to go like this and buff it all over the skin, you're going to start taking your concealer off in those areas where you really wanted it. So you can see as I'm doing this, it's starting to take some of the coverage off, and that happens sometimes. It happens because you're taking a brush over top and you're removing some of that coverage, and it happens, but I'm going to show you how to address that. Doing the same thing, just setting the forehead area as well. I used medium in CC cream. I'm using medium in Celebration Foundation as well. Taking it down the neck so that it kind of ties everything in together. Now, if this happens to you, what you want to do is you want to take a concealer brush, or you could use an eyeshadow brush if you don't have a concealer brush, and just get your powder foundation on there and use this. Now you're using your powder foundation as a concealer, but because it's a powder, it's also setting at the same time. And it's super easy. I think powder foundations are almost the easiest foundation to use, and in a lot of cases, they're the fastest. Is that little guy still up here? Okay, so now I feel really good about the eyes. I feel good about the brows. I feel good about my complexion. So from here, I mean, you could be done if you want it to be. But if you want to take it to the next level and you want to add some bronzer, I don't know what that is, but I think we should cover it. So I just used more powder foundation on that. Great. Okay, so now I'm gonna contour a little bit because one of the things I notice is that as I'm finished my foundation and I feel really good, see, this one always goes up higher. I do it, I'm the one doing it and I don't know how to stop it. It's almost like an involuntary move that my face makes. Anyway, maybe I'll try to make this one a little bit higher. It drives me nuts. These brows, man, they have a mind of their own. All right, that's better. Okay, so now I'm just gonna use a Universal Matte Bronzer. This is Sunshine in a Compact. You could use a blush brush, you could use a bronzer brush, you can use whatever you have. What I'll do, now I always part my hair on this side, so for whatever reason, I tend to put a little bit more bronzer over here because I feel like, you know, because it's parted there, there's a lot more visible forehead there, so I just tend to put a little extra on that side. So from there, take it down along the underside of the cheekbone and kind of buff it upwards. Okay, and then the same thing on this side. I'm making that face so I can figure out where my cheekbones are. See, very soft and subtle, but it's there. And now everything's not so matte and flat looking from when you did your foundation to make your skin look absolutely gorgeous. The nice thing about this bronzer is that it's super buildable. So you could totally use this and just keep building it up until you get to the desired shade. Like if you have a tan, you're probably gonna wanna add a little bit more during the time when you're using your self tanners. Taking it down the neck. This is gonna kind of tie everything together so that everything matches. But also, like when you do this to your neck, it kind of has a slimming effect when you do that. Okay, and then from there, I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit of highlighter. And I like putting highlighter on the high points of the face. I'm gonna use the Hello Light Cooling Sticks. Yeah, I'm gonna use the shade Copper Rose. And this is the one that looks like it's darker, but it actually goes on every skin tone totally clear. So see that? Now this will dry down a little bit, you don't have to. But what this is gonna do is it's gonna give the illusion of lift in this area. I don't know why I always put it there. When you put it here, it makes your lips look fuller. That looks super pretty. And that's actually the Copper Rose shade. So I was saying how it looks darker in the component, but it goes on super soft. So I'm just gonna wipe that off my brush so that I can kind of blend this out a little bit more. Maybe I'll put a little bit in the inner corners of the eye too. And it's so cooling. We call them cooling sticks and they are so cooling. Great, so when you turn, it's just kind of like, oh, that's nice. What's going on there? So nice. Okay, and then from here, I'm gonna put some blush on. I like to use the shade Naturally Pretty. It's like my go-to. That and Je ne sais quoi. This is more of like a soft peachy pink shade. Blurs away the look of pores. So if you have a face that eats blush, this might be the answer for you. And I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit more of what's left on my brush from the setting powder to take a little bit more to just set this area here where we've kind of been messing around. Sometimes when you start messing around, move things around that you didn't mean to. How are they looking? Do we need a little bit more? Let's see. Good. Great. Okay, so we're pretty much done, except I'm gonna add some lips. So today I'm thinking I'm gonna do Vision from our Pillow Lips line. And I always start with lipstick first, and then I do lip liner. And I just think it looks more natural when you apply your lip liner this way instead of your lips looking super overdone. And if you think your lips are looking a little overdone, just pull the lip liner down to soften the line. And I still feel like it even looks a little too harsh, so I'll take some a lip treatment. Kind of pull that together. Let's see here. Here I have a little bit of a lip brush. So there we go. So that's it. That's what I would do to do my full face. Just everything from complexion perfection, and just even if you don't have perfect skin. Also, we did eyeliner, we did brows. If you're someone who thinks that maybe you had a little bit of a heavy hand with your brows, go back in and comb through them. That will also soften them. But if you're someone who's like, oh my gosh, my brows just look so dark, take a little bit of your powder foundation and dust it over top. That'll really soften it. See the difference? Yeah. And then the last and final step that I'm gonna do is setting spray. Setting spray is my savior. So this one's just gonna set your makeup. But it's also a massive dose of skincare, so I love that. And this will help to keep, like, whatever brand of makeup that you're wearing, it'll help to keep it from creasing, from cracking. And it'll also, like, if you've been using a lot of powders like I did today, and your skin's starting to look a little dry in the process, this will actually add the look of hydration back to your skin. So I feel like I want to do something with my hair. Maybe that'll be the next video. Anyway, okay, that was it. Thank you guys. I know it was a little while, about a half hour long, but I hope maybe you learned some new tips and tricks. And then next time we'll just focus on isolated areas, like just the eyes, just the brows, or, you know, just contouring, just skin, just highlighting, you know, you name it. We'll figure it out and we'll get through this together. So I hope you all are having a great day. I love you. Goodbye. Mwah.